Hello and welcome to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Dauster, and woohoo, do we have a lot to talk about today. UConn is coming off of another massive win, having gone into Florida, knocking off the Gators by 21 points in a game where it never really felt like UConn got out of second gear. They are now sitting at 10-0 on the season. They've won 5 straight games against high major opponents. Only one of those games came at home, and all of them came by a double-digit victory. The only game they won by less than 15 points so far this season was against Oklahoma State at home in a game in which they led by as many as 19 points with like 8 minutes left before Oklahoma State found a way to cut that deficit down. I think that it is safe to say they are having an unbelievable and thoroughly unexpected start to the college basketball season. They're currently ranked 5th in the AP poll. They are currently sitting in 2nd on KenPom. They are 2nd on Torvik, and they are the only team in America that is currently ranked in both the top 10 of adjusted offensive and adjusted defensive efficiency on both KenPom and Torvik. Look, college basketball is wide open this season, and there are teams across the country that have put together more impressive resumes, more impressive wins. I think you can make the argument that Purdue beating Gonzaga and Duke by 20 is more impressive than UConn beating Alabama and Oklahoma State and Iowa State by 15 or 16 or whatever it is. But in a vacuum, you're going to have a tough time convincing me that UConn is not the best team in college basketball today. And I got to be honest, I was not expecting at any point this season to come on this show and to say that. I don't think I'm the only one saying it right now, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that is surprised by how good the Huskies have been so far this year. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to give you some snippets of text that I've gotten from really smart, really important people in college basketball that you guys would know the names of. I'm not going to give you the names, but I'm just going to read some of these texts. Here's one. Quote, as of today, UConn is the best team in the country, and it's not even close. Here's another one. Quote, we defended the shit out of them. We drilled our scout. It didn't matter. We didn't have a chance. Here's another one. UConn is, all caps, really good. They're really good on both offense and defense, and this one is my favorite. Quote, Rob, I think you have every reason to get carried away, which is, look, I don't need permission to do that, man. Let me tell you guys. So I'm going to spend today's episode diving into what I think makes this team so dangerous and what makes them so good. Before I really dig into it, though, I do want to say this. Look, a dip is going to be coming at some point, right? It is college basketball. These guys are young adults. These players are not robots. They are human beings that go through the emotional ringer that every young adult, 21, 22-year-old human being on this planet goes through, right? They are also pretty close to a finished product, as much as any team in college basketball is this early in the season, yes. Donovan Clingan is going to get better this year, yes. Tristan Newton and Naheem Aline are going to find ways to kind of expand their roles in this offense. I think Hassan Diarra is going to find a way to get better. I don't think Andre has really broken out on the offensive end quite yet. They're going to improve, but if you kind of look at the national landscape, teams like Duke with all the freshmen that they have, teams like Villanova with all the injuries that they've dealt with, teams like Kansas with who their head coach is and what they haven't figured out yet, teams like Creighton with the fact that they haven't made a 3 in what feels like 2 weeks. Those teams are going to improve, and they're going to catch up to where UConn is right now. The rest of the country is going to catch up. It's just that's what it is. So while UConn is probably going to start playing better, they're also going to start playing better competition, and there are going to be bumps in the road. We're not winning every game this season by double digits. It ain't happening. I know that they're projected to win every game on KenPom, but they're not winning every single game. That's not the way that the sports work. So as a fan base, can we please just agree that whenever these things happen and you get some bumps and you take some losses and you go on the road in Big East play and you drop one to a team that you didn't think you were going to drop one to, can we all just agree to take that in stride and not freak the fuck out? Please, can we do that? I'll be the first one leading the way and leading that bandwagon, leading that charge. All right, before we kind of talk about a little bit more of this stuff, I do just want to throw a couple things out there. Field68.shop, our merch store is open. We do have a new UConn t-shirt in the merch store. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So I know that this is a UConn specific podcast and we do have a UConn gear in there. But if you want anything else, if you have friends that are Arkansas fans, if you have family members that are Duke fans, if you know people that are Kansas fans, there's lots of gear in there. You use the code holiday, you get 20% off. It's a, be supporting the cause, you'd be supporting the podcast, you'd be supporting the network. It's all very much appreciated with the holidays coming up. 2, Field of 68 Daily. It is our daily newsletter. It is it's the best way to keep up with college basketball from a national landscape. It hits your inbox every morning, 8:30 a.m. The link is in the description below, whether you're listening to the audio feed or you're watching this on YouTube right now. To be frank, it is the first thing that I read every single morning. It is the best way for me to kind of keep up with everything going on with the sport. I got a lot going on. Look, I got 2 kids. Christmas is coming up. I'm trying to keep this thing going. I do 4 different podcasts. I'm on After Dark 3 times a week. It's tough to keep up with everything nationally. Field of 68 Daily is the best way for me to do it. So let's start with this. Let's get back into UConn. Here's what stood out to me more than anything else so far this season. UConn has 9 starters, right? They have 9 starters. There is no drop off when anybody comes in the game. I think last night is the perfect example, right? Alex Caravan, been a guy we've raved about on this show. Picked up 2 early fouls, didn't play the last 16 minutes of the first half, and it didn't matter. Jackson slid over to the 4 spot. You're bringing Naheem Aline, who just so happened to be a guy that averaged 10 points for last year's ACC tournament champions, and boom, off and running. Don't miss a beat. Nothing slows down. Jordan Hawkins, he's not shooting well, goes to the bench, gets a breather. You bring Joey California in. He's shooting 58% from 3 and is just as much of a threat in all of the actions that they put Jordan Hawkins is as Jordan is. Hell, one coach even told me last night that UConn might actually be better with Donovan Clingan at the 5 than they are with Adama Sanogo at the 5. You have 40 minutes of a sustained threat with no drop-off, no issues with fatigue. You don't have to worry about injury trouble. If someone gets hurt like Samson Johnson, if someone sprains an ankle during a game, you're going to be able to withstand that. I think that is that's so important when it's just kind of the season is a war of attrition. And 2, it's unusual in a college basketball era where the transfer portal is so prevalent, where it's so difficult to convince guys, hey, look, you can come here and you can play, but you're going to be playing 10 minutes off the bench, right? A lot of times guys hear that, boom, they're in the portal, they're gone. They're not staying, they're not hanging around, they're not going to try to earn their spot, right? It's part of the reason why we see a team like North Carolina right now, basically 5 deep. So that, to me, that's the single most important thing about this group, right? Is there is no drop off for 40 minutes. The other part of it is that when you are a team that is winning with your defense and you're winning with your ability to rebound, which is kind of what UConn is at this point this season, not having that drop off in effort and not having that drop off in intensity is just, it's so important, man. Like, look, I think that UConn is the best defensive team in the country. I know that there's going to be some people that disagree, but I think that they are. I think Andre Jackson is the best defensive player in the country, flat out. But beyond him, it's just they are so incredibly well drilled on that end. It's impossible to create good looks against them offensively for a number of different reasons. But the biggest one to me, and Todd, we went to a quote from Todd Golden on this, but the biggest thing to me is like just how well drilled and how connected they are on that end of the floor. They have size and length at every spot. They have guards that can climb up in you defensively, right? They have shot blockers at the rim, so if they go out and pressure you, you're going to be able to. If you drive to the basket, you're going to be running into 7'2" Donovan Clingan or 6'9" Adama Sanogo or Andre Jackson coming forward from the weak side and putting the ball through the backboard, right? They are incredible at hedging hard and rotating on the weak side and making sure that they're always in the right spot at the right time, just blowing up ball screen actions. They are so well coached on the defensive end of the floor. Like Dan Hurley, if you're listening to this, man, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm John Wooden. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm the smartest guy when it comes to basketball, but I know enough to know what I'm looking at, and I know enough to know when teams are doing something well and teams are doing something poorly. And having watched now 400 minutes of UConn basketball this season, there's literally one possession where I was watching and I was like, oh yeah, you know what, that was bad. That was a pretty big mistake that led to a layup. I'm not going to call out who it was, but it was last night, and I think a lot of people probably know that moment. UConn is currently top 10 in defensive effective field goal percentage. They are top 30 nationally in defensive turnover rate. They are top 30 nationally in defensive rebounding rate. They are fifth nationally in limiting three-point attempts, right? They run you off the three-point line better than just about anybody else in college basketball. Here's a quote, and it's not just me saying it. Here's a quote from Todd Golden from last night. Todd Golden is Florida's head coach. The thing that I think UConn does at an extremely high level is not exactly their ball pressure, like picking up the ball or denying passes, but they cover up for each other so well. We got downhill a couple times on drives, and it looks like Kyle Lofton will have that sneaky left-hand layup, and then here comes Klingon or Sonogo to wipe it off the glass. We throw out to a shooter, and they cover it up. They do a great job. That right there comes down to coaching. It comes down to execution. It comes down to practice. It comes down to shell drill, getting drilled over and over and over again, and practices like that. That stuff it's so crisp and so precise. I cannot say enough about it. Like, they are an incredibly coached basketball team. So shout out to Dan Hurley for being able, and the staff, Kamani, Tom Moore, Luke, for being able to get them to this point this early in the year. It's really, really impressive to watch. And I hope everybody that's listening to this appreciates what they do. Here's the other part about it. They also happen to have 3 elite offensive rebounders, right? So what that means is that UConn can have games where they like bring a C plus, their C plus game offensively, where maybe they're not hitting shots, maybe they're not executing perfectly, maybe they commit some silly turnovers. But defense and rebounding is going to travel. You're going to be able to create second shots. You're going to be able to survive nights where you're not playing your best on that end of the floor. And look, frankly, when you go on the road and Big East play, there's going to be times, it's a Tuesday, it's -4 degrees out, you're playing at Marquette, top 25 kind of a team. You're going to have nights where you don't play great offensively. Being able to get stops and being able to get second chance points is so, so important to being. It just raises your floor for what you are every single night. And that's what UConn really does. And that's where they thrive. So with all that said, I wanted to look at some historical trends, right? I wanted to kind of put into perspective, not just for myself, but for everybody, to showcase why UConn very much deserves at this point to be in the national title conversation. Let's start with point guard play. Of the last 12 national champions, right, dating back to 2010 to Duke, there's only one of them, Kentucky in 2012, that played with the starting lineup that only had one point guard, one playmaker, one initiator, one creator, however you want to phrase it, right? Now, it gets a little bit tricky here, and I'm kind of forcing square pegs into round holes, but I do think that that the case that I'm making makes a lot of sense. So hear me out on this. Take 2018 Villanova, for example, right? They only had one point guard on the roster, but he was Jalen Brunson. He was the National Player of the Year, and the other guys in the backcourt with him were Dante DiVincenzo, a first-round pick that could create off the bounce and pass, and Mikal Bridges, another first-round pick that could create off the bounce, that could pass, that was averaged more than 3 assists a game. If you look at 2017 North Carolina, right, they started Joel Berry, but Joel Berry was kind of their off guard in the offense, right? Theo Pinson was the initiator. Theo Pinson was a guy that created stuff offensively. Theo Pinson was the de facto point guard on that roster, and they still had Nate Britt coming off the bench. Theo Pinson was basically what Andre Jackson is for this UConn team. Handled a heavy load of playmaking and initiating duties, right? I think if you look back at last year's Kansas team, for the most part, they only really started DeJuan Harris at the point, but Remy Martin was healthy in the NCAA tournament run, and they were at their best when they were able to put Harris and Martin on the floor at the same time for large stretches of the game. I say all that to say this. The best teams in college basketball and the best teams in basketball, period, have more than one creator on the floor. And UConn at all times is going to have more than one creator on the floor, whether it's Tristan Newton, whether it's Andre Jackson, whether it's Hassan Diarra. And that's to say nothing of the fact that Hurley is as good as just about any coach in the country at being able to create actions that get guys into the sets or get guys into positions where they can thrive, right? You don't necessarily have to have a creator because you can create offense with the shit that they run. Some of that is running Jordan Hawkins off of 2 or 3 screens and getting him coming to his right hand off of a curl, coming down the lane, getting them downhill. They did that a bunch last night, right? Some of it is creating ball screen actions when you know that Colin Castleton is going to be playing drop coverage and you know that the weak side defender is not going to be tagging, so you can come up the screen, throw the lob up, Donovan Clingan, boom, dunking on your head. Some of it is just creating offense where you can get a little ducking for Adama Sanogo to let him go one-on-one in the paint, right? And they have enough three-point shooting around them where you can allow Adama Sanogo to go one-on-one in the paint because you can't double off him. And there's 3 or 4 40% three-point shooters surrounding him on the perimeter. So that's That bodes really well, right? But I also think that the 2022 Kansas team is another perfect example of something else, right? That team won a national title with a true low post five man. I don't think that that's necessarily the easiest thing to do. North Carolina did it in 2017 as well. Duke did it in 2015. Um, but generally speaking, big, slow-footed guys like that help you win a lot of games in January and February. The NCAA tournament, as UConn fans can attest, is a guards game. There's a reason why a team with Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier can be a 3 seed and go win a title. There's a reason why a team with Shabazz Napier and Ryan Boatwright as a 7 seed can go and win a national title. There's a couple of reasons I'm not super concerned about this. The first is I do think that UConn mitigates some of the issues that you have with big guys, with their ability to hedge hard on ball screens and to help in those ball screen actions. Right, you don't necessarily have to worry about switching. You don't have to play drop coverage, which can kind of get you in trouble a little bit. We're seeing that with Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz and some of the issues that they have. So I think that UConn is able to play through it. The other issue is that they have the ability to go small if they need to. Now, I don't think it's ideal to play Alex Caravan and Andre Jackson together at the 4 and 5. And I still think that we're going to see some lineups where you play Samson Johnson at the 5 as well. He's not back yet. You're taking off one of probably your 2 or 3 best players with no Sanogo and no Klingon. But if you need to match up to a team that way, if they're just going to say we're going to play 5 guards, then you have the ability to be able to do that. The other one is that I think UConn also has quite a bit of pro talent on their roster. And that pro talent is not necessarily their best college basketball player. Jordan Hawkins and Andre Jackson are going to be top 40 picks, right? If not first rounders. Hell, I mean, they might even be top 20 picks the way things are going right now. But neither of those guys are the best player on this year's team. That title belongs to Adama Sanogo. That title sometimes might belong to Donovan Klingon. Like the best players on this group are the guys that are not necessarily the pros. And I think that when you have that combination, everyone's kind of bought into their roles. It's really what raises the ceiling for a team like this. And lastly, I do want to mention this, right? UConn is currently the only team that's ranked in the top 10 of both offensive and defensive efficiency on KenPom and on Torvik. This isn't the greatest way to judge title threats because there's some arbitrary cutoffs and whatnot. And when Villanova won the title in 2018, they were number 1 in offensive efficiency and number 11 in defensive efficiency. But it is worth mentioning this: 19 times in the last 11 NCAA tournaments, a team entered the event as in the top 10 in both KenPom, in top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency on KenPom. 2 of them won the national title. 5 of them made it to the national title game. 7 of them made it to the Final Four, and 2 more got bounced in the Elite 8 by another team that was top 10 in both the metrics as well. Another one of those teams on the list. So, generally speaking, however, teams that have elite offenses with good enough defenses tend to be the best teams. And I'm not sure if I would quite call UConn elite offensively just yet. I think that they're very good, but I don't think that they're elite in the way that 2009 UNC was, in the way that 2018 Villanova was, in the way that 2019 Virginia was. But I think they are very, very good, and they do clean up a lot of their own messes. So that if there's one thing that I can kind of say, like, look, this is where we necessarily need to improve. This is where UConn necessarily needs to get better. It is having a little bit more functional offense in the half court, but that's picking nits, man. Like this has been the best team in college basketball to date so far this season, and I'm really excited to see where they can kind of grow from here. So I do want to play you guys a snippet of last night's After Dark, from where Patrick Young and LaVall Jordan and Greg Waddell, I think, had the best combo that I've heard from a national perspective when it comes to UConn basketball this season. But before I do, I want to note this. I just said that UConn was not elite offensively, right? There have been 2 teams in the last 12 NCAA tournaments that have won the national title while entering the event ranked outside of the top 20 in adjusted offensive efficiency. 2011 UConn and 2014 UConn. Let's fucking go.
To the Big East, where we have the UConn Huskies, a team that the last show I hosted with you last week, LaVall, was on the rundown. We didn't even get to them. We talked about like 10 different other teams before.
You did that on purpose. Just
that on purpose? Yeah.
Hey, no comment on that. I know my boss, Rob Dauster's looking at me sideways about it. Look, I can't avoid it anymore. Okay. You're welcome. UConn wins by 21 points tonight against Pat's Florida Gators. I called this wrong. I thought Florida was going to get the upset tonight. I did. I called this. I should have talked to you. I saw the text about 10 minutes into the game, and that's on me for not reaching out to you first. But I was skeptical of this UConn team still because this was their first true road game, and because they had a real good 4-game winning streak, a lot of neutral site games in that run in the tournament. And to be honest with you, Alabama was the only team that I would consider good to great that I think they had seen. Yeah. And I've only seen Florida a couple times this year, was not aware at all that this offense was in the spot that it was tonight. And I'm sure, Pat, you can tell us more about that. But I think this offense struggled tonight because of how good UConn was defensively. I mean, they have animals on that side, on the wings, and they took everything that Florida wanted to do and just spun it on them the whole game. So, Pat, let's go to you first. We are still doing the contender or pretender game, but first in this game tonight,
we got to choose first and then explain.
Yeah. Well, why was UConn so good tonight, Pat?
Yeah. Well, first off, UConn, this is my first time getting a chance to see a full 40-minute game. And I knew what the position that Florida was in offensively before this, where they have had their struggles ever since that West Virginia game, getting thumped by 30. Had a real look in the mirror type. What type of team we're going to be? And UConn showed up and showed out. They, to me right now, are absolute contenders. Just execution alone, to the game plans, to being able to take away the strengths. Not that Florida has been a offensive juggernaut this year. I think the lineup has changed 6, 7, 8 times already, and we're 9 games in. Being able to take Castleton out of the game, he struggles with another big man with length. Someone that can be physical with him. UConn gave Florida what they wanted, and oftentimes Florida shoots themselves out of the game. They settle for empty possessions, bad shots early in the shot clock. UConn flies back on offense to their spots. You can tell it's a very well-coached team, getting to their spots, setting great screens, finding Donovan Clingan. Oh my gosh. That's why I look at this UConn
center,
team.
by the way.
What's that?
He's the backup center, by the way.
And I was listening to Jimmy Dykes, and he's like, "This is probably the best backup center in the league," and he's a freshman or in all the country right now. And I can't disagree with him. I think when you look at Adam Sanogo and Donovan Clingan, if UConn were to match up with Purdue, I think UConn would give Purdue a lot of problems with their size, with their speed, with their shooting. Jordan Hawkins was awesome off screens, so smooth. I really didn't see many flaws with this UConn team at all. I was like, Florida, if you don't start taking care of the ball, I mean, I'm surprised it wasn't a 30-point game, honestly, because there was nothing easy for Florida in this entire game.
Dauster's going to love me for this. I'm 2 hands up on Connecticut contender.
Hey,
and here's why. Again, like I said, right now, defensively, they're one of the best in the country. Right, defensively, they are 4th in the KenPom. They are 8th offensively. So they're going to bottle you up defensively. They've shown that. They beat every high major team they played by double digits. Firepower. So now you start talking, okay, take away Sanogo. Well, you got Jordan Hawkins. He's making 3 threes a game. He can go for 30. You got Tristan Newton. He's averaging 11 and 5 and 4, and he can go. You got Alex Caravan. He pick and pop big, and he can get you 20. Patrick just said it. You got Clingan off the bench. He was the MVP in Portland at the PK Invitational. You got Calcaterra, a hired hitman coming in from San Diego. His 15 minutes can get you for 15 points if you're not careful. So it's hard to find. They're top 5 in the country in shot quality right now. Danny runs great. He runs his sets. right? They're long and delayed, so they keep you on defense. He was going to get Sanogo in the middle third of the court. They're going to run Jordan Hawkins off actions. The only thing, so they got a matchup and a dominant player. The only thing is how dynamic. They had RJ Cole last year when games got tight. And he was a dude in the pick and roll, and you had to decide if you're going to trap him. He could find the other guy. I didn't even talk about Andre Jackson off the bench, who's averaging 4 assists a game, and maybe the best athlete in the country. Right. I almost forgot about him. So I don't know many weaknesses, right? If they're getting hurt with a matchup with a big, say you got a pick and pop 5 man, they can just throw Caravan at the 5 and play small and switch. So they can beat you in a number of ways on offense. They can guard you multiple ways on defense. And they have the X factor, Greg, and I think the X factor is this. We played for a national title when I was an assistant at Michigan, and we made the run because Trey Burke said when he came back, we're going to play for a national championship, and our guys had a belief and they had a chip on their shoulder. The thing that trumped us was Louisville had Kevin Ware, who had broken his leg, so they had something they were playing for, right? I played against Florida when they were playing for a back-to-back national they had something they were playing for that was this thing that motivated the group and lifted them to another. UConn hadn't won a tournament game since 2016. Now they're a member of the Big East. I think that is a game changer for them getting out of the American Conference. So they've got something they're playing for with a huge chip and an unbelievable amount of talent. It's hard to find a flaw with Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm right there with both you guys. 2 thumbs up, contender for me. I had seen Connecticut a little bit this year. This is the first game I'm just totally blown away. And I think I sort of shrugged off a lot of these growing signs of stardom from different guys as just small sample size. They can't possibly continue to play this well. No, yeah, maybe they can. Jordan Hawkins is that good. The thing with him for me, it's the attempts. Like he's going to get his 7-8 threes a game up just within the motion.
Good too.
And
they're good looks.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're forced. Like normally when you see a guy with that type of gaudy attempts, there's some questionable shot selection or just some questionableness nature behind it. Nothing with him at all. Like the whole team embraces that. Klingon, I think they correctly identified he's the best backup big in the country. I mean, Colin Castleton is a damn good center. And Colin Castleton was the 3rd best big on the floor tonight, and it wasn't close.
Yeah. He was one of 9 in the first half. Colin Castleton.
I'm wildly impressed by this team and how they can do it on both sides of the ball. And I think Hurley deserves a lot of credit for putting some gap pieces together in the portal this year, too, with Tristan Newton. I mean, he's been a very good floor general for him so far. Calcaterra, like you mentioned, off the bench, double digits tonight. This team's top 6, top 7 is tough. And I think a lot of people in the Big East, it's been Villanova for years. Then this year, maybe it was Creighton, the Big Eyes. Now it's UConn.
And the other thing is, like, injuries are a factor right now. We just talked about Cam Whitmore coming back. So, unfortunately, that's a fact. Like, they have insurance. I mean, Hassan Diarra is still on the team. and with Kleeman as your backup big, say something, they've got depth and insurance policies. If something happens, they still have Naeem Aline, right, sitting there not getting that many minutes, but we know what he's capable of.
Would anybody go so far as to say they think UConn might be the best team in the country right now? You don't have to, but I'm just curious because I don't know who is the best team right now.
I'm close.
I'm close
with
as well.
Connecticut.
Okay.
I just say, it's just that, like I said, multiple ways that they can get you. And if they're having an off night, they're one of the best offensive rebound teams in the nation.
Right.
So that's the thing with them in Houston. Like, okay, say you do a good job defending them on the first shot. The second shot is going to be the issue because both of those programs, they put the bubble up and it is war in practice. And so they're averaging 13 offensive rebounds a game. So
what? The bubble practices? What?
Yeah.
People don't know about that. When that bubble goes on the rim, just know it's not about making shots today. This is a physical. There's no fouls. This is you're not friends today with your teammates. That's for sure. Ain't no friendships.
No,
you probably won your fair share of battles when the bubble was up, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I won my fair share, but it wasn't my favorite. It's still not my favorite thing to do.
No.
Yeah, there's probably not too many teams in the country I'd want to participate in that with, but especially not UConn, especially not this team. And we just named a lot of things we love about them. I feel like we barely even mentioned their best player, Adama Sanogo, who, I mean, a quiet 17-7 tonight. He had foul trouble a little bit, but he's a beast and he's back for a reason.
A great
and
touch.
Yeah, he's special. All right, so that's 6 thumbs up collectively between the 3 of us on UConn. Come back next episode. We'll tell you whether or not UConn is definitively the best team in the country. I have a feeling that's going to be a conversation in the next few weeks.